and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV where a competitor has their face on socks. And I'm not talking about Johnny Bananas this time, I'm talking about Fessy. It is impressive when a player who isn't even on the season can still find a way to annoy me. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge, Season 37, Spies, Lies, and Allies, Episode 15. And let's start off where last episode left off, and that was Amanda going up against Big T in the elimination, winning. However, because Ashley was disqualified, Big T got to stay in the game, and she stayed on Ruby while Amanda swapped teams with Tori. So now Amanda is on the Emerald team, Tori is on the Ruby team heading into this episode where back at the Challenge house, Amanda is so excited to be on the Emerald team, whereas the Emerald team isn't so psyched up to have Amanda, but the trio of Devin, Josh, and Casey are all talking about just going with the flow of the game, welcoming her into the team with open arms, but Devin is frustrated because his number one in the game, he says Tori is his number one in this game, is off of his team. And can I just say, I am confused by this because it was just last season where the whole narrative was Tori and Devin did not like each other, they couldn't stand each other, yet just a small off season, and in this season, they're coming in as number ones, which that is a quick turnaround. But not everybody on the Emerald team is sad that Amanda is on the team, because we go to a scene where Josh and Amanda are excited that they are on the same team. We have this like War of the Worlds duo back up together, linking up together, but Josh does end the conversation telling Amanda to take this seriously because this is his best shot of making it to his first finals and running these finals. Next, we move to another team meeting, this time with the Ruby team, the new Ruby team, where Tori has donned every single piece of red clothing or red gear that she could, and she is like fully into this Ruby commitment ceremony. She is trying to give everybody a pep talk, motivation, get everybody jazzed up heading into this next daily challenge, but Kyle is not buying into it because he's like, I've been on this Ruby team for a while now. I was off it, then I'm back onto it. I'm gonna let you know right now, we're unsalvageable at this point. We move on to the next morning where we see Emmanuel doing some stretching out in the yard. We get a confessional of him saying like he knows he's the only rookie to have not seen the elimination floor yet, and he knows his time is coming. His name will be called at some point, and he has to get physically and mentally prepared. Then we see some exercising happening with CT and Josh in the backyard, and CT mentions that he feels like Josh is in the best shape of his life, and he is more focused in this game than ever before. Maybe this is CT coming around to Josh, maybe not using the goof term like he did so willy-nilly last season. Now, speaking of CT, this is where we get the real strategy of this episode kicked off, where CT is talking to Tori about, hey, let's have the Ruby and the Sapphire team work together and possibly get the Ruby team in power and get to that first agency win. And Tori is thinking, this sounds really like a great plan. And I think this is one where Tori is thinking that this could really stick it to her old Emerald teammates, more specifically Josh and Amanda, because she doesn't want Emerald to win, because then it's like, oh, well, we're back to our winning ways now that we don't have Tori. And Tori wants to stick it to them because, hey, you called me expendable, you don't respect me as a competitor, and now look, I got an unwinnable team, their first win. So Tori is like, yeah, let's do it. So with all that in mind, let's move to this week's daily challenge called Boom Raiders. In this week's daily challenge, every team is going to have their own bunker with their own 10 sticks of dynamite. And what you're going to have to do is one at a time run down into these trenches, probably collide with somebody, go off to another team's bunker, steal one of their sticks of dynamite, and bring it back to your station. The team that can get 20 sticks of dynamites first will win this daily challenge, win into the agency, and win power and safety. Now, each round will be alternated in a men's heat and a women's heat, and before anything happens, that's when Emmy is like, hey, Mr. TJ, I'm the only woman on my team. How am I going to be going up against 5 other women? And TJ says, not my problem. That's your problem to figure out. So we move on to round 1 where it's a men's heat, and so it's pretty clear to the Emerald team that Ruby and Sapphire are working together against them, and everything is right as rain. Emerald is being picked apart, and then right before round 1 ends, that's when we have Kyle, instead of going left, he goes right to the Sapphire bunker, takes one of their sticks of dynamite, and that's when he is put on blast by Logan. CT gives him a little shoulder check before he's heading back to his Ruby bunker, and then that's when the round ends and everyone is calling out Kyle for being a snake, for doing the wrong thing. His own team, the Ruby team, is yelling at him the whole time, and that's when we have this like new deal being made between Emerald and Sapphire to go only at Ruby. Sapphire is like at the peak right now. Nobody is even looking to take Sapphire's dynamite. This should be a daily where the numbers should just smoke everybody, but instead, it's the turmoil between the two teams of Emerald and Ruby and Sapphire's plan to pit them against each other. It was amazing to watch. Round 2 starts up, it's the women's heat, and things get chippy between Casey and Tori. There's some hip checking, there's some nudging into each other, and while all that is going on, Emmy is able to just sashay her way through these trenches, grabbing her sticks and then walking back over to her bunker. At the end of round 2, Sapphire has 15, Ruby has 7, and Emerald has 8. Now, Ruby and Tori is trying to get back on that deal between Sapphire, but it's over. Like, it's already over. It's locked up. Sapphire is way ahead of everybody, and now is like getting real just heated between Emerald and Ruby, where now Josh and Kyle are getting ready to go up against each other. They're yelling at each other. They're chirping at each other. They're getting all set up to just knock into each other, head-on collision. And so when TJ blows that horn, and this is where we get a real collision between Kyle and Josh, and CT is right there. He pushes Josh into Kyle more and then just hops over both of them to get to the Ruby station. And then round 2 is when they're coming back after getting their sticks and they run into each other again. They're wrestling in the middle of each other. Sapphire is able to get easily 3 more sticks heading into the 4th round, where Sapphire is just way ahead. They have 18 sticks, Emerald has 8, and Ruby has 4. The last round is all for pride, all to just show like, hey, I got what it takes. I'm gonna go head to head at you, and I'm gonna show you what you're missing on your team. This is what Tori's thinking about. So now we have Casey and Tori coming at each other in this round, and Casey just lays Tori out. She upends her, her feet come off of the ground. I'm surprised that like we didn't have Rob Dyrdek in the confessionals talking about this hit from on top of a giant laptop. Casey trucks Tori, then on the way back, this is where we get a wrestling match, but it's pretty much too late as Emmy gets her 2 sticks that she needs to secure Sapphire's 2nd win in a row. That's right, Sapphire wins into the agency, wins their 2nd daily challenge in a row, and heading back to the challenge house, that's where we're having like an Emerald team meeting with Tori, and Tori is trying to explain herself, why she made that deal with Sapphire, why she was working with them. She wanted to get the win, wanted to keep Kyle and Nelson safe while also keeping Emerald safe, because if they were the agency, they weren't going to send anybody from Emerald in. But Devin is not buying it. He's saying, shut it down. Don't even try to sell me anything because I'm not buying it. I don't expect for my best friend to go behind my back to make a deal with another team. You kind of just sold us up the creek. You put us in danger. You put me, your best friend, in danger. You put Emmanuel, somebody that you are hooking up with, in danger. Like, what's your plan? You're just playing a selfish game, and I'm frustrated with you. And Devin walks away. Tori starts to cry. She runs over to Kyle, who is sleeping in his bunk, saying like, hey, when you go into the elimination, don't pick Devin. Please don't pick Devin. And Kyle's like, I wouldn't pick him. Like, I don't understand why Tori is feeling like Kyle would pick Devin. We had that whole dial picture way earlier on in the season. We know that they're best friends. And honestly, there's better people to pick as competition for an elimination. You got Emmanuel, a rookie who hasn't been in elimination at all. And then you also have Josh. And if I'm Kyle, I would be looking to pick Josh because, hey, I've already beaten Josh in elimination before. He also doesn't have that great of an elimination record. Now, speaking of Kyle and friendship, we move to later in the night. We have a conversation between Kyle and CT, and CT's like, look, we've looked out for each other. I don't want to come after you, but what is the deal? I can't trust you, and I don't think we're necessarily friends in the game if you're trying to sabotage me. Kyle thinks it's a little drastic to say that they aren't friends because they've known each other for years. They've worked with each other in the game for years. They've roomed together. This goes all the way back to Kyle always being a snake, people saying that Kyle is a snake. We have that sabotage daily challenge that happened earlier in the season where he sabotaged Devin instead of going for Fessy. We have this episode where he steals Sapphire's dynamite, even though it was clearly stated that Sapphire and Ruby were working together, so he sabotaged there. So CT is trying to figure out if he can really trust Kyle in the game or not, but things get really blown up. They start yelling. Everybody can eavesdrop easily. Emmanuel, we see, is trying to like listen in, but everybody in the house can hear it without even having to just be sitting right on top of them because they're just yelling. They're putting all this on blast. Kyle is getting frustrated. We even hear how frustrated he is. The next morning when he's talking to Devin, he's like frustrated with CT, bringing up that they aren't friends because they have been working with each other. We go to the nomination ceremony where Logan says, all right, sell us your best pitch to not go into elimination or to be sent into the elimination. This is where we have all the Emerald Men leaning on the same pitch where they were like, we were in power, and when we were in power, we didn't send any of you in. We kept y'all safe. Don't throw us into the elimination. Then we move over to the Ruby side where Nelson's like, I would prefer not to go into elimination, but if I have to, I totally understand, and I'll just go in there and rip somebody's head off. Then we move over to Kyle, who says, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be in the elimination. I totally understand that, but if I do get sent into the elimination, I will be picking Emmanuel to go up against him, and then I'm going to be taking Logan's spot and going back to Sapphire. And the whole Sapphire team is not shaking whatsoever. They think that this is a bluff, and they make Kyle the compromised agent. So Kyle's going into the elimination. Now, before we get to the elimination, we get Kyle talking to Amanda and Big T, and Kyle is saying like, I'm between either picking Emmanuel or Josh to be going into the elimination against. And Amanda says, look, you got to do what's best for your game. Who you think you can win against best, pick that person. Throw friendships out the window. Don't worry about that, which I think is like wisdom from her past challenge seasons, and everything that she's learned, she's trying to instill in Kyle. Like, don't even pick because you think, oh, that's who I should pick or whatever. Pick who you think you can win against. This is where the alarm bells are ringing. Everybody dons their elimination gear as we head to the lair where TJ calls down Kyle, and for Kyle to pick an opponent to go up against. And this is where Kyle's like looking at the elimination, trying to figure out what they're gonna have to do. And when taking a look at this, the first thing I thought of was the elimination that happened earlier on in the season between Jeremiah and Amber going up against Corey and Bettina. There was like a bridge structure, there was planks or whatever on the ground. Kyle's like looking at it going, I'm sure balance is gonna have something to do with it. So he doesn't wanna pick Emmanuel because he has better balance. He's gonna pick Josh. So in this week's elimination, we have Kyle versus Josh in the Burning Bridges elimination. In this week's elimination, the men are gonna have to construct a bridge of 16 planks, but to get each plank, you're gonna have to ring a bell. So once you put a plank down, you have to run over, hit your bell, which then signifies that you can grab another plank and then bring it up to the second story and then drop it down. You have to ring a bell to be able to get a plank, and then you can only bring one plank at a time. The person that can construct their bridge of 16 planks first and then pull their lever to set their bridge on fire wins this elimination, stays in the game, and gets to make a decision. And can I say that this elimination was pretty tedious, and I think it was meant to be, because this elimination really tests your endurance, your strength, but also timing. Because I did think that like, okay, this elimination seems pretty straightforward, but what I did like the most was that the bell was not just stationary, which I thought it was going to be, but when you hit the bell, depending on how hard you hit this thing, this bell could be flying every which way, and if it's like flinging all the way around because you hit it so hard, by the time you drop your plank and then come back, you're gonna have to just like sit there and wait for the bell to either stop, or you're gonna have to jump and make a leap of faith hoping that you hit your bell, because if you miss it, you're gonna have to walk all the way back up and then ring your bell before you can grab another board and put it down to construct your bridge. I felt like Kyle was always in the driver's seat. He had a little bit more push, he had a little bit more endurance, a little bit more strength than Josh the whole time, because there was points where Kyle was ahead of Josh either by one plank or they were tied up. There was never really a point that Josh pulled ahead of Kyle at any point, despite Kyle missing his bell here or there. There were points during this elimination where Josh jumped perfectly at the wrong time, that his fingertips just missed the bell because he jumped at the exact time that the bell was just like moving away from him. Once Kyle got like ahead by one board, he decided that he was just going to stop at one point, wait for the bell to stop a little bit to make sure that he rang the bell, because if he missed it, that was going to be some valuable time. So he would stop, take a breath, take some rest, get a little bit more energy, not rush it, make sure he hits the bell, and then be constructing this board at a very consistent time. And he did it. He really did a very good job at this elimination. Josh did pretty well as well, but like I said, Kyle was always in the driver's seat. He was able to get all 16 boards down. He flipped that lever, set the bridge on fire, and then he decided to flip everybody off on the stairs because they were all rooting for Josh instead of him to win. So Kyle wins this elimination. Josh is sent home late in this game and has to put his finals aspirations on the shelf. Kyle gets to stay in this game, and he does exactly what he said in the nomination ceremony, where he takes Logan's spot, tells him to get off my team. So Logan is going to the Ruby team. Kyle is coming back to the Sapphire team, but that's where this episode ends. I have to say that this was a pretty decent episode. I actually really enjoyed the daily challenge. I love the collusion between the Ruby and the Sapphire, and how Sapphire, who had 3 members who probably should have been easily eliminated from this daily challenge, was able to pull out the win because of strategy and not because of number-wise. I really enjoyed seeing the results. I was happy to see Sapphire win into power yet again and see Emerald be kind of still in the hot seat and be frustrated. Devin really feels on his heels at some points when he's coming at Amanda last episode and now coming at Tori from this episode and making her cry and being super angry at her. And it's just like, okay, Devin is feeling the heat. He is feeling the pressure this late in the game. What did you think about this episode? Let me know that in the comment section below. What did you think about the daily? What did you think about the elimination? What did you think about all the planning, strategizing, and drama? Let me know anything and everything down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. While you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge 37 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.